The world erupted in a single night, and his name was everywhere. Michael Turner said, "This isn't real. They don't know the truth." But the screens glowed, hashtags burned, and headlines screamed betrayal. Once adored, he was now branded a liar, a fraud, a monster. Friends scrolled past his messages. His phone shook with notifications, each one another dagger. The betrayal cut deeper when his closest ally reposted the accusation. His chest tightened as the walls seemed to close in. Michael whispered, "They've already decided. I'm guilty before I speak." The roar outside his window was not the sound of cars, but of voices demanding his end. His world was over before he could even stand to fight. The silence inside Michael's apartment was suffocating, broken only by the endless vibration of his phone. He whispered, "They don't want truth, they want blood." Outside, the city hummed with life, but for him it felt like a funeral march. His reputation was gone in a single night, and he could feel the weight of strangers judging him from their screens. He stared at the cracked phone on the floor, replaying Sarah's betrayal in his mind. The woman he trusted most had turned him into prey for a hungry mob. His breathing grew shallow as fear mixed with disbelief. The walls, once safe, now closed in like a cage. Michael reached for the television, remote with trembling fingers, desperate for answers, yet terrified of what he might see. The screen blared instantly with his image beside the word, "fraud." He muttered, "They're rewriting my life in front of millions." Every commentator spoke with confidence, each voice another nail sealing his coffin. He thought of the years of work, the sacrifices, the dreams, all reduced to a headline. Rage burned, but so did fear, because he knew anger could not silence the mob. The streets outside his window erupted with chants as protesters gathered, holding signs bearing his name and insults. Michael pressed his forehead to the glass, whispering, "They don't even know me." Strangers shouted with conviction, fueled by rumors and posts. The noise outside blurred with the pounding in his chest. The betrayal wasn't just digital anymore. It had spilled into the real world. His sanctuary was no longer safe. Michael collapsed onto the sofa, his body heavy as if drowning in air. He covered his face with both hands and muttered, "It's over before I even defend myself." The betrayal replayed in his mind like a broken reel. The world had built him up, only to devour him in seconds. He felt his heart pounding against his ribs, the silence inside louder than the mob outside. For the first time, he wondered if survival was even possible. Morning light crept through the blinds, but Michael hadn't slept. He whispered, "They'll never remember the man I was." He looked at framed photos on the wall, a smiling son, a proud mother, a life that once seemed secure. The world saw a villain, but he remembered long hours building a career, sacrifices made to provide, and small victories that once felt monumental. His voice cracked as he said, "I was more than their headline." The silence echoed, heavy with loss. He felt the weight of a lifetime erased in a night, his humanity buried under a storm of outrage. Michael stood in front of his bathroom mirror, water dripping from his face. He stared at his reflection, eyes hollow, jaw trembling. "Who am I now?" he muttered. The mirror reflected a stranger, lines deeper, beard uneven, expression fractured. His hands gripped the sink until his knuckles whitened. The world outside had rewritten him, and now he couldn't recognize himself. The shame burned hotter than anger, an acid eating away at his identity. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be erased while still breathing. He opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of old journals. His handwriting scrawled across yellowed pages, reminders of ambition and hope. Michael said softly, "I wanted to change the world, not destroy it." He flipped through memories of projects, speeches and ideas, each one now tainted by scandal. His past self stared back, full of fire and certainty, a ghost haunting him. Closing the journal, he realized the mob would never read these pages. To them his story began and ended with accusation. Michael sat by the window, staring out at the rain as memories flooded him. He whispered, "They once cheered for me." He remembered applause from crowded halls, laughter shared after late nights, moments where he mattered. Now the same world that raised him had sharpened its knives. His breath fogged the window as he pressed his forehead to the glass. The distance between then and now felt infinite, and yet it was only yesterday. His hands trembled as he realized that every cheer had carried the seed of silence that now smothered him. He picked up a faded photo of himself and Sarah Williams, smiling arm in arm at a company celebration years ago. "You were my friend," he muttered. The betrayal burned sharper when he remembered her loyalty, once seemed unshakable. The photo slipped from his hand onto the floor, face down. For a moment, the silence seemed louder than the chants outside. His past was not just broken, it was weaponized against him by those he trusted most. His chest tightened as he realized he had lost not only the world, but also the people he had built it with. Michael opened his laptop, desperate for some sign of support. Instead, subject lines screamed with finality. "Termination notice." His breath hitched as he whispered, "Not them too." Emails stacked up, each severing ties, each coldly worded and distant. Partners he once celebrated victories with now erased his name without hesitation. He scrolled through decades of collaboration reduced to empty phrases like regret to inform. Every word sliced deeper than the last. His hands shook, fists pressed hard against the desk, veins pulsing with rage he couldn't release. He muttered, "All gone in one night." The silence after each notification felt like a hammer, each strike shattering what little remained of his career. Michael picked up his phone, scrolling through contacts like a drowning man reaching for rope. He sent message after message. "Please, I need you." None came back. The blue ticks glared back like silent accusers. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Not even a word." Friends he once trusted, people who laughed with him in better days, were suddenly statues, their silence a shield against his downfall. Abandonment was louder than the mob's chants outside. The glowing screen dimmed into black, and in it he saw his reflection. Hollow eyes, trembling lips, the face of a man no one wanted to touch. He dropped the phone on the sofa, the thud echoing like a rejection. Michael's family had always been his refuge, but tonight even that sanctuary was shattered. He scrolled to his sister's number, Emily Turner, his fiercest defender. No response. No call. Just silence that burned sharper than insults. He whispered, "Even you?" His thumb hovered over the phone, aching for her voice. But fear had caged her too, leaving him abandoned. He glanced at an old photo on the table, him and Emily grinning at a summer barbecue, laughter frozen in time. He reached out, fingers trembling, brushing the frame. Tears pooled as he realized family could betray not with words, but with absence. The emptiness stretched between them like a chasm, and he was already falling. News anchors dug deeper, dragging forgotten posts into daylight. Michael shouted, "That's not who I am." But the mob didn't want truth, they wanted fuel. Every post twisted, every word reshaped into proof of his guilt. Screens glowed with outrage, commentators smirking with certainty as they dismantled his character. His heart pounded against his chest, each headline heavier than the last. He muttered, "They don't care about facts, only fire." He punched the armrest, pain flashing up his arm, but the headlines kept scrolling. His identity, once complex and alive, was reduced to fragments, a monster stitched together from lies. The phone rang, and Michael grabbed it like a lifeline. Daniel Harris, his closest colleague, filled the screen. Relief cracked across his face, until Daniel's voice cut like ice. "I can't be associated with you anymore." Michael stammered, "I thought we were brothers." Daniel's tone was firm, calculated. "I have to protect myself." Then silence. The line went dead. Michael sat frozen, phone slipping from his hand, body rigid as the weight crushed him. He realized loyalty wasn't broken by anger, but by survival. Daniel had chosen ambition over friendship. Michael whispered, "Everyone leaves when it's darkest." His chest hollowed as tears stung his eyes. The last thread of hope snapped in a single call. Michael sat in the dark, screens glowing like silent judges. His phone buzzed, but buried among insults was a strange message. "You're not the villain she is." He froze, breath catching as he opened it. The message carried a screenshot. Sarah Williams boasting in private chat, "This is how I finally take him down." His heart lurched. He whispered, "She set me up." The words cut sharper than the mob's rage. The betrayal was no accident, no wildfire of strangers. It was orchestrated, planned with precision. Sarah, once his confidant, once the woman he trusted most, had pulled the strings. For the first time, despair bent into fury. The storm wasn't chaos. It had an architect. Michael scrolled further, hands trembling as evidence piled up. Emails, insider threads, and timestamped files linked every attack to Sarah's ambition. He muttered, "You wanted everything I built." His eyes scanned her careful steps, orchestrating leaks, stirring outrage, whispering to journalists. Every click revealed another trap she had laid months before. He slammed the desk with his palm, veins straining on his arm. "This was never about justice," he hissed. The mob thought they were punishing a criminal, but in truth they were puppets, dancing to Sarah's tune. Michael's stomach twisted. His life hadn't unraveled by chance. It had been dismantled by design. Memories collided like shards of glass. Michael saw Sarah at company dinners, her laughter louder than the room. He remembered meetings where she sat close, offering advice with a smile too polished. He whispered, "You were planning this all along." Each recollection sharpened with hindsight. Her charm with executives, her careful questions about his weaknesses, her sudden rise in influence. She had played the long game, pretending loyalty while carving out her throne. Michael's breath grew shallow, realization burning through despair like fire through paper. His fall wasn't random. It was the path she had cleared for her own ascent. Then another message appeared. Anonymous, direct. "I saw what she did. I know the truth." Michael's pulse hammered. His fingers hovered over the keys, mind racing. Who would risk contacting him? He whispered, "You're real. You saw it." For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope pierced the gloom. Yet fear crept in too. If someone knew, why had they stayed silent until now? His chest tightened. Trust had become poison. Still, desperation outweighed doubt. With shaky hands he typed back, heart pounding, praying this wasn't another trap. The sender revealed fragments of themselves, an overlooked colleague, always silent in meetings. They shared files proving Sarah had doctored evidence, manipulating timelines and twisting context. Michael stared at forged screenshots, bile rising in his throat. He whispered, "She built my coffin and handed them the nails." Relief flickered. He wasn't insane, he wasn't guilty. But anguish followed, heavier than before. The world had already condemned him, carved his guilt into stone. Would they listen now, or was the truth too late? His hand shook as he closed the laptop, whispering into the silence, "They wanted a monster. She gave them one." Michael sat frozen, staring at the evidence of Sarah's betrayal. His chest tightened, his breath shallow. He whispered, "I won't die silent." With shaking hands he dragged his camera closer. His reflection in the black lens stared back, unrecognizable, broken but defiant. Sweat rolled down his temple as he muttered, "They took everything, but not my voice." The glow of the red light blinked to life, painting his face in warning hues. Fear clashed with fury inside him. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was survival. He whispered one last time, "They'll hear me, even if it kills me," before going live. The live stream began with a trembling voice. "You've been lied to. The woman who condemned me built this entire lie." He held documents up to the lens, but his words drowned beneath the flood of insults scrolling in real time. "Look at the evidence," he shouted, voice cracking. His throat ached, desperation rising. For every viewer who paused, hundreds spat venom. Rage burst as he slammed his fist onto the desk, scattering papers like broken wings. "Oh, you want justice? Here it is." His voice cracked with fire, body trembling under the weight of truth. The camera shook with his fury, exposing not just evidence but the unraveling of a man in flames. Michael's momentum faltered when another feed cut in. Sarah Williams, flawless on a polished broadcast. Her voice calm, deliberate. "He's lying to cover his guilt." Executives nodded as pundits echoed her words. Michael slammed his desk, yelling, "She's lying." His face flushed, sweat dripping, but her tone remained ice cold. She looked collected, calculated, untouchable. Michael's breath quickened, chest tight, as the weight of realization settled. Her narrative had already won. His truth was a whisper against her thunder. He muttered through clenched teeth, "Truth doesn't matter anymore." Anguish and fury blurred together as he watched his last chance unravel live. His phone buzzed. Emily. Relief cracked across his face until he heard her broken voice. "Michael, please stop. You're making it worse." His heart sank. "Even you don't believe me?" he whispered. Silence pressed back, louder than the mob outside. She wasn't condemning him. She was abandoning him, out of fear. The last thread of family loyalty snapped. Michael's throat closed as rage surged with grief. "Doesn't anyone care about the truth?" he shouted into the void. His chest heaved, each breath a battle. Emily's silence was not hatred, but it cut deeper, leaving him exposed and utterly alone. The breaking point came like thunder. Michael shot up, chair crashing behind him. His fists slammed the desk, rattling the camera. Tears streaked down his cheeks as he screamed, "You wanted a monster? Here I am." His voice cracked, hoarse from rage, body trembling as if burning alive. The chat froze for a moment, viewers caught between horror and fascination. He wasn't just defending himself anymore, he was exposing the wreckage of a soul ripped apart. For one haunting second, the mob leaned in, watching not a villain, but a man consumed by fire. His meltdown was both confession and defiance, the climax of his unraveling, live, raw, unforgettable. The live stream ended abruptly, not with applause or validation, but with a silence that crushed him. Michael sat hunched, body trembling, papers scattered across the desk like broken wings. Sweat dripped onto the wood as he whispered, "They wanted truth, and they laughed instead." Outside, chants continued faintly, but the real noise was gone, replaced by a void thicker than air. The webcam light had died, leaving only the echo of his final scream. It looked like a severed heartbeat, blinking once, and then gone forever. He stared at it, hollow-eyed, realizing his voice had not been amplified, but buried deeper. He muttered again, "Even proof doesn't matter." His words, barely audible, felt like a verdict harsher than any judge. News stations replayed his breakdown endlessly. Clips of his fists slamming the desk, his scream echoing, were looped like grotesque highlights. Commentators mocked him, branding him unhinged and dangerous. Sarah Williams appeared polished on every channel, her suit immaculate, voice calm as silk. "This is the desperate act of a guilty man," she told the world. Executives nodded, pundits laughed. Michael sat frozen before his flickering television, whispering, "They've already written the ending." His nails dug into the sofa cushion until his fingers ached, rage powerless against the tidal wave. His life had been converted into spectacle, not tragedy, primetime theater for millions who had never known him at all. Days melted into nights, indistinguishable in the darkness of his apartment. Michael drifted through rooms like a ghost, blinds drawn, meals untouched, phone buzzing with nothing but more abuse. Online, his image was warped into memes, his cries twisted into jokes shared by strangers. He whispered, "I'm not a punchline," though the words felt powerless. Emily remained silent, friends absent, colleagues erased. He stared at his journals, their inked words once filled with ambition, now mocking relics of a man erased. Each page felt like a taunt, proof that dreams could be turned to ash in a single storm. He sank into the sofa, chest heavy, heart slower with each passing hour. Survival itself felt cruel. One evening, his phone buzzed with a new message, sharp against the silence. It was the anonymous ally, "I'll go public." Michael's heart lurched, but despair muted it. "It's too late," he whispered, though a flicker of hope clawed at him. He imagined headlines correcting the lie, Sarah exposed in disgrace, justice restored. Yet he also saw the mob, laughing as they twisted even truth into fuel. His thumb hovered over the keyboard, chest tight, torn between disbelief and need. Finally he typed, "Do it anyway." His voice shook as he repeated aloud, "Do it anyway." For the first time he felt his fight was no longer for himself, but to leave one crack in the stone wall of lies. When dawn crept into his apartment, Michael stood by the window, pale sunlight washing over his gaunt face. The city below bustled as always, life untouched by his collapse. His reflection in the glass looked faint, ghost-like. "They'll never see me as I was," he whispered. Cars moved, laughter echoed faintly, headlines already shifted to another scandal. His story was sealed, forgotten by strangers who had feasted on it only days before. He pressed his forehead to the cool glass, breath fogging the window. Survival, he realized, wasn't victory. It was existence, hollow, fragile, endless. A tear slid down his cheek, proof that even erased men still bleed. He whispered, "I'm already gone." The world had moved on, headlines bleeding into fresher scandals, but Michael remained trapped in yesterday's ruins. He sat hunched in his apartment, the air stale, the blinds half-drawn. His name, once shouted with admiration, now lingered only in half-forgotten whispers, carried like a warning rather than a memory. He whispered, "I gave them my truth, but they buried it alive." His eyes drifted to journals piled around him, filled with hope and fire, now reduced to relics mocking his downfall. He thought of the applause, the laughter, the admiration. Each moment turned to ash. Silence pressed in heavier than any insult, suffocating, absolute. Erasure, he realized, was far crueler than hate. The anonymous ally finally released the truth online, evidence spilling onto forums, feeds, and hidden corners of the web. Screens lit with Sarah's deception, proof of manipulation laid bare. Yet the world scrolled past, attention fractured, eyes hungry for the next scandal. Few paused. Fewer cared. Sarah still smiled from polished studios, her voice calm, her lies intact, while Michael's evidence drowned in distraction. He muttered, "Truth came too late." His voice cracked, worn thin by despair. Redemption dangled before him like unreachable light, but the mob's verdict had already been carved in stone. History, he realized, remembered the spectacle, never the correction. Emily's number flashed on his phone at last. His chest tightened as he answered, silence thick between them before her trembling voice came. "Michael, I saw it. The truth's out there." He stayed silent, gaze fixed on the window where rain streaked faint lines against glass. After a long pause he whispered, "It doesn't matter anymore." His words fell heavy, final. Emily's voice broke into sobs, her guilt pouring through static, but she could not bridge the canyon carved by fear and absence. Michael's eyes glistened but held no rage, only emptiness. "They needed me guilty more than they needed me real," he muttered. Then, with a faint click, the call ended, sealing the distance forever. Michael rose slowly, his body heavy, and walked to the tall apartment window. Below, the city pulsed with life, cars rushing, strangers laughing, lives unbroken. He whispered, "The world doesn't pause for broken men." His reflection in the glass looked ghost-like, gaunt and hollow, almost a stranger. He pressed his forehead to the cool surface, eyes closing as his breath fogged the pain. His tragedy was sealed, not by courts or facts, but by silence and spectacle. He was no longer man but myth, a cautionary tale carved in digital stone. "I'm a ghost in my own story," he muttered, and the quiet swallowed him whole. The ending came not with redemption, but with silence. Michael sat at his desk, slowly gathering his journals, stacking them with care, as though preparing his legacy. Dawn crept through the blinds, painting the room in muted gold. He whispered, "History won't remember me, only the lie." His voice cracked but carried no anger, only weary resignation. His eyes lingered on the rising sun, faint warmth brushing his face, a reminder of a world that moved without him. For a moment he almost smiled, not from joy, but from surrender. His tragedy was carved forever, not in truth, but in betrayal. The final whisper slipped past his lips, fragile as breath. "They killed me without ever touching me."